We've got a special poker vlog for you guys today, as this was one of the most unique and action-packed sessions of the year so far. I invited my editor Lucas to join me for a special tag team Valentine's Day live stream at Texas Card House, where we faced off against some of the biggest action players in all of Dallas. You're also going to want to stay tuned until the end, where Lucas plays 1,000 big blind pot with just second pair. What a legend. Just to quickly show you guys how this event worked, each team consists of 2 players who would each tag team a stack at 2 different poker tables. The main table is obviously on the live stream, but we recorded our hands at the second table as well so you guys can see all of the action. We each start off with $1,000, which is the max, and switch up every hour or so to pick up where our teammate left off. I'll hand it over to Lucas as we jump right into the action at table number 2.
Right off the bat, to kick off the action, we're going to scoop in this nice bomb pot here when everyone else folds on the river to my bet, to which we then find ourselves here as one of the last 2 players in the knit game. It went pretty fast, about an orbit and a half, and almost everyone else had their knit button gone. For those of you who don't know what the knit game is, it's just the stand-up game here in Texas, except you don't have to stand up. We just have our TCH cards on the table there to kind of represent who still has their knit button. We peel 5-4 offsuit here. Normally this is just a hand I'm never playing, but because we're in the knit game here and because Izzy there on my right, who is my opponent, does go ahead and raise this one on up, I'm gonna go ahead and make the call and just kind of hope and pray that we hit a hand. Harvey goes ahead and calls as well from the straddle, and we go off to a flop, which is definitely above average for 5-4 offsuit. It comes 9-6-3 rainbow. We have an open-ended straight draw here, and the best part is it's not a dirty straight draw, meaning there is not 2 of the same suit on the board. So any of our straight draw outs at the moment are going to be clean if we do happen to hit a 7 or a 2. Action's gonna check around here on the flop, and we go to the jack of clubs on the river. I decide I'm gonna play this hand pretty passive here. It looks pretty suspicious if I just kind of start blasting off into this hand. I know I have equity, but when I'm one of the last 2 players in the knit game, it's gonna look pretty suspicious. So I start with a check here, and Harvey's gonna go ahead and bet out for $20. When Harvey bets here, I think he's just gonna have a jack a lot of the time. Maybe a 9 that decides not to bet the flop, but I think it's just gonna be a jack a lot. He could have also have picked up a club draw on the turn. When Izzy decides to fold his hand, a lot of the pressure is now off me to try and win this one. If Izzy had called or even raised, I would have been in a really tough spot. But once he folds, I could play my hand pretty straightforward here. I go ahead and toss in 1 chip to indicate a call. We're definitely going to be looking to hit one of our straight outs here, and that's exactly what we do on the deuce of hearts on the river. Bang! On the river here with the absolute nuts. I don't really know how we got to this spot with 5-4 offsuit, but here we are, and it's actually kind of a dream spot because the deuce of hearts on the river is not going to improve a lot of my holdings. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it's very likely that Harvey has a jack. So we're gonna size up here. I cut out about a 2x pot size bet for $215. Harvey over there on the left chuckles a little bit once he sees this. I don't really blame him for being suspicious here. Like I said, this is just not a spot that we're gonna end up in a lot of the time. So when you do, you gotta go big and you gotta make it look bluffy. Harvey thinks about it for a little bit.
Straight.
4-5. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Harvey does confirm that he did indeed have a jack of some sorts. He just couldn't let it go, thinking I was trying to take this pot down to win the knit game, but instead, he calls, and we're scooping in this $500 pot.
Things are going in the right direction. We're obviously pumped for the hot start, and I pick up Pocket Kings, the Cowboys here, come in for a 3-bet to 125 over a raise to $35 from DGen Paradise. We're going to see a cold call from Team Love Sucks, not before Mr. and Mrs. Ben decide to jam his entire stack all in with pocket 10s from under the gun. Obviously a dream spot from Wolfgang Inc. I posture for a second, put on a little bit of Hollywood, trying to get Team Love Sucks in, but when I put in the call, he pretty quickly folds and we are off to a run out. Taking down hand number 2 of the live stream, a $2,100 pot coming over to Wolfgang Inc., and the hot start continues.
That is a big win for Wolfgang Inc., who told me that his team slogan is going to be big nuts and bigger bangs. So there is the first bang of the night for Team Wolfgang Inc.
In this next one, we're going to go ahead and peel Ace-Jack offsuit here from the small blind. There's a button open to $35, and I'm going to come in for a 3-bet here. I make it $130. Little over 3.5x because I'm out of position, and the button is going to go ahead and put in the call. The button is a regular here at TCH. His name is Benham, and we're off to a flop, which comes King 5-4 Rainbow. This is a pretty great board for me as the pre-flop aggressor. I'm gonna have all the strong King X in my range. I'm gonna have aces, and in general, I'm just gonna have a lot of hands that could put a lot of pressure on Benham here, and he's gonna have to fold. Maybe not on this street, but on future ones. I start out here with a down bet to $90, and Benham pretty quickly puts in the call. I'm not too concerned yet, as he can just be floating me with a lot of single pair holdings below a king. The turn is another king, and normally this is not another card I would be continuing on too often. It's usually not good to continue bluffing when the board pairs, but I just don't think he's gonna have a lot of strong King X, and I wanna keep telling a story here that I have a pretty strong hand. So this time I put out another bet for $140. It's pretty small in relation to the pot, about a third of the size. I wanna make it look believable that I have a king here. This is probably the size I would use if I actually had one. So that's the bet I put out, and Benham pretty quickly calls once again. I'm still not putting him on a king just yet. It's just not very likely he's going to have one with two of them out there, and just the way he's kind of quickly calling me doesn't really give off the body language that he has a strong hand. So when the river comes to 3 of clubs, it really doesn't change anything. Yes, it brings in some straight draws as well as some backdoor flush draws. And honestly, as I said earlier, this is just usually not a run out that I'm going to be bluffing on all that often. Nothing really too much has changed, as well as some draws getting there, so it's just not going to be a very good bluff on my end. However, we're having some fun here on the Valentine's Day live stream event. Wolfgang has just walked over from the main table, and he's watching me cut out some chips here on the river. I blast off here for $425. I don't even see Benham snap call me. So I turn over my cards, tell him he's most likely good, and sure enough he is when he calls me with 5-6 offsuit. Not exactly the hand I was putting him on when he calls my 3-bet pre-flop, but hey, that one's gonna get the job done here. This is why it's just probably not a great board to bluff on, because nothing really changed from the flop for him. The top card pairing on the turn and another undercard coming out on the river was probably one of the best runouts for his exact hand. He puts in the call, and he's going to scoop in that nice pot.
Back over to the live stream table, I have 2.1K in my stack. We see a raise from the Bad Beauties before 2 calls over to me in the cutoff with pocket 10s. I make it $225 to go. Would love to go heads up in position with some of these fish. If everyone folds, we make like 150 bucks, so 2 very good options. We get the original raiser to fold, and then Mr. and Mrs. Bennett jam all in for 1.2K. Kind of an interesting line, calling the 40 bucks and then just shoving it for 1.2K. Seems like a middling pocket pair. I'm going nowhere with my 10s. Maybe in a game out in the field, I might consider folding against a super nit. But this is a live stream. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett are obviously fun players, so I decided to get it in with pocket 10s, and we are off to a run out.
Oh, wow. Saved by the river.
All right, we have to ship all of those chips back over to seat number 9. A little bit of give me your chips, then I'll give it right back. You get some chips, you get some chips. I feel like Oprah over here. And yeah, $2,500 pot going over their way. That would have been pretty sick. We would have been up over $3,000 on this main table. But instead, we're back where we started, just under $1,000 in our stack. All right, I'm on table number 2. I'm back to a $1,000 stack that I've been handed over from Lucas. However, he had to dip in his pocket, and he's in for $1,500. He topped on for $500 more. I raise it up to $30 with Queen Jack of Diamonds from the +1. We find ourselves getting 2 customers. Off to a flop we go, which comes Queen, Queen, 9, bang, we flop trips. In between 2 opponents, I usually start with a check. No different here, even though I have 3 of a kind. I check and the action checks through, bringing in the Ace of Diamonds. Now I want to go for some value. I fire out for $60. Will we get a customer? Yes, Benham is a good customer. Puts in the call, and the river comes the 6 of clubs. In a $215 pot, I decide to overbet for $275, trying to target all of his aces that I don't think can fold for any size bet. I'm going to have a lot of busted draws here, like Jack 10 and some busted heart draws. So if I'm going to bet large with my queens, also have to bet large with those bluffs. Unfortunately though, he doesn't have an ace, I don't think, folds his cards, and we're taking down that pot. Trying to get the chip stack going in the right direction. The $20 straddle has been put on by yours truly. There's a call and then a 3-bet in front of us. I decided to defend here. It's a little bit loose, I'll give you that, but 7-6 of diamonds on the second featured table here, and we're making a vlog. I want to play some hands for you guys and try to outplay my opponents. I call, and we are going 3 ways to the flop when Carlos calls as well. Flop is king 10-3 with 1 diamond. Not exactly the board I would have cooked up, but when the action checks through and the 5 of hearts peels off on the turn, we now pick up a gutter ball. Any 4 would give me the 7 high straight. Still, I think checking in flow is the right decision. Doesn't really make too much sense to lead out here with my sets. I still think the pre-flop raiser could have checked behind a hand like king, queen, king, jack. So I'm going to go for a check raise here, and the opponent fires out for $75. The reason why I want to check raise here is because I could easily have pocket 3s or pocket 5s from the straddle. Likewise, I could have 3-5 suited, I could have king 10 suited, and have played it pretty slow. So a lot of very strong hands here. Obviously, I have a gutter ball 7 high. But yeah, I'm going to have some very strong hands as well. I make it 275, and Team Love Sucks, aka Carlos over there in that fun hockey jersey, he folds his cards. It's back over to the villain in the cutoff, who doesn't think about it for too long before putting in the call. And we're going to want to see a 4 on the river, but that's not what we get. It's a board pairing 10 of diamonds. And now I have to posture for a second, because I've been told by some very smart people that when the board pairs on the river, you kind of got to be giving up on a lot of your bluffs. It's just not a great spot to do it. However, I am filming a vlog. I have 7 high. I don't really think the villain in the cutoff has too strong of a hand when he checks back on the flop. Sure, he could throw a few kings in there, but I think it's more likely he has a hand like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, or maybe even pocket jacks. I think the only bet size that's going to get those hands to fold is a jam all in for $715. He has me covered. The 715 is in my stack, and he goes into the tank, you guys. He's thinking about it for a while. The dealer counts up all of the chips, and then eventually, do we get the fold? No, the cutoff calls with pocket jacks, a hand I thought he had. Couldn't get him to fold that. What a call by him. It looks like I just bluffed off Wolfgang Inc.'s entire stack here. $2,200 pot going his way. Let me know down below what you think of the bluff. Would you guys have folded on the turn check raise and river jam with pocket jacks? Seems like a light call there, but he's playing the opponent, not his cards. And today, he is beating old Wolfgang in this pot. All right, I still find myself on table number 2. I raise it up to $40 with my favorite hand, pocket 7s. Never not going to be playing pocket 7s. We find a call from the player on our left with those sick suit tattoos on his right hand. Look how cool that is. And then we got Slick Rick, fellow content creator here in the Dallas area. He 3-bets us to $160. Actions back over to me. Like I said, pocket 7s is my favorite hand. I am going absolutely nowhere. I decided to put in the call. We're probably set mining at this point, and we are going to go heads up to the flop, which comes ace 4 deuce rainbow. Not the best board, but also not the worst one. He's still going to have a lot of king queen, king jack, jack 10 suited, all of that good stuff. So when he fires out very small here for $60 into the $360 pot, it's almost an insult. I can't go anywhere with my favorite hand. I put in the call, and the turn comes the 10 of spades. Action goes check, check, bringing in the king of diamonds on the river. I debate turning pocket 7s into a bluff, but I only think about it for 10 seconds, because really, what am I trying to get to fold? Maybe hands like 8s or 9s, that'd probably be about it. King, queen, and king jack definitely aren't folding to 1 bet, so I check it over to Rick, who snap checks behind like a nit with ace 6 offsuit. Ace 6 offsuit, he's 3-betting that to $160. Okay, you're not a nit, Slick Rick, but you gotta bet that river. Get some value for my 7s one more time, even though I definitely wasn't paying you off.
I now find myself on the live stream once again in the nit game, and it has been absolutely brutal over here. I am getting relentlessly 4-bet. I decided to 3-bet queen jack offsuit from the button just to get 4-bet by the straddle with pocket 7s. I think about it for a while, but unfortunately queen jack offsuit, just not good enough of a hand to call with, not even in the nit game. So this is just an example of some of the table dynamics that are going on. It's definitely a battle. And then that leads us here into the next hand where I pick up ace 6 of diamonds from the hijack. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, the team that Wolf has been battling so far on the live stream before me, raises it up to $30 here with a mystery hand from the +2 position. We are once again on the back end of the nit game here, and I gotta make a move, so I go ahead and 3-bet the ace 6 suited up to $90 over this $30 raise. I'm in position, so 3x is a good sizing. I'm hoping for a fold or just a call, but that is not what happens. Mr. Bennett here decides to raise it again to $280. Looking back on it, they no longer have their nit button, so they don't have much of an incentive here to 4-bet light. Although I had kind of built the narrative in my head that they would be 4-betting me light some of the time because they would perceive me as 3-betting light because I still have my nip button. I decided not to jam it all in here, instead pick a sizing of $590 on my re-raise. I just think it looks really strong and like I want a call. I think some of the hands he's going to be 4-betting here are going to be put in a really tough spot when they face this min 5-bet. And if I do happen to be against a strong pair like kings, queens, or jacks, I do have an overcard and will still have equity in this hand if he does decide to go all in. And unfortunately, that's what happens. Mr. Bennett goes ahead and puts it all in. I have a little more than the graphics say. I have around $1,000, so it's around another $400 for me to call. I don't love it, but at this point, we're pretty pot committed. And like I said, I do have an overcard if we are against one of those strong pairs, which we are. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett here have pocket kings. I'm not super thrilled, but we should still have around 30% equity in this hand to hit our overcard. But when the run out comes king, queen, 8, we are practically flop dead. The turn is another queen, which gives Mr. and Mrs. Bennett a boat, which secures my fate in this hand. Definitely not one of my proudest moments, but hey, sometimes you just gotta make a move.
All right, things are not going so swimmingly. We're back on the feature table. We find out that Lucas has added on another $1,000 on the live stream. Not really great news to come back to, and I'm taking over his spot, and we are heads up in the nit game. We definitely can't be losing it. That would be detrimental to our stack. When the Heartbreakers, who are the only other players left in the nit game, raise it up to 250 from the low jack, I find myself in the +2 with Jack 9 offsuit. I put the $40 straddle on with Jack 9 offsuit. The Heartbreakers 3-bet me to $250. Actions back over to me. Obviously, no one wants to get involved with two players that both have their nit button in front of them. I decided to jam my entire stack all in. It's most likely a flip. However, we could be dominated versus hands like ace-jack, king-jack, king-queen, ace-king. However, how likely would it be that the low jack has those hands heads up in the nit game? I jam it all in, and he snap calls with pocket 4s, Ethan's favorite hand. Look at that, we find ourselves in a flip situation. Not folding the Jack 9 offsuit has proven worthy for us, and we are going off to a run out. Need a jack or a 9. The board does not run out good for us, and we are losing the nit game. $200 coming out of my stack, paying out everyone at the table 25 bones.
I look over at Wolf at the main table and see that he's just lost the nit game and an all-in. So I need to make some of that money back here at table number 2 with Jack 10 of clubs. We see an early position raise to 25 over the $10 straddle and a call. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet this out of the big blind. And when there's an under the gun straddle on, the big blind essentially works the same as you'd play the small blind. I'm pretty much just going to be 3-betting or folding out of this position, so that's what I decided to do with this one. I decided to 3-bet Jack 10 suited up to $80. This hand just is going to have great playability post-flop, so I'm not too worried if I get called, which is exactly what happens when both players put it in. And all my worries quickly fly out the window when the flop comes queen 9 8. We flop the absolute nuts. Really no reason to slow play this hand. It's a very coordinated board. There's going to be diamond draws. Opponents here are going to connect with the queen, pocket 9s, pocket 8s. They're going to have some pair plus straight draws as well. So when it checks to me, I go ahead and fire out a friendly bet of $75, but somehow both of them don't have a hand. I'm not sure how neither of them have a hand that connected with this board when they both call my $80 bet pre-flop, but nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and take down this small pot.
All right, I'm at the main table. I put the $20 straddle out because a YOLO gamble, let's go. And the Bad Beauties, aka Poker Face Ash, raises it up to $60. Have a premium here with Ace King of Diamonds. I put in the 3-bet to $180. In position seems like a perfect sizing, and she calls with a mystery hand. When the flop comes Ace Jack Jack, I'm either going to be way ahead or way behind. Therefore, I think a small bet accomplishes a lot here. I fire out very small here for 85, and she calls with her mystery hand once again, bringing in the 10 of diamonds on the turn. We pick up a royal flush draw. Not often you can say that. And I like the commentary here. He suggests that I go for a check.
He's going to pick up the royal flush draw here on the turn. Certainly a spot that he can go for the bet check bet line if he wants to. A lot of people will look at this turn card and say, oh, mandatory continue. But the problem here is that you get all of the hands that you're beating just snap fold, and you have so much equity and probably are just still best that I love the check back here. Absolutely love the check back.
That's exactly what I decided to do. I check behind here, giving me a boat on the river with the ace of clubs. And now the bad beauties have some evil intentions here, and she fires out for $375. Action's over to me. The logical play would be to rip my entire stack all in, right? Just jam it in there, get value from a jack. However, I think Ash is a great player and is going to fold a jack in this spot. She's also going to fold pocket tens. I think I'm chopping against any ace at best. And then the other flip side of that coin is she could have pocket jacks. So I don't really think it's a winning situation. We're getting all of her worst hands to fold, the exact same hands to call and we chop, and then there's one combo of pocket jacks that we lose to. So I decided just to call here for $375. Kind of seems like a nit roll because I thought about jamming for a second there, but I put in the call. She turns over pocket sixes, so she tried to bluff old Wolfgang here in his red Valentine's outfit. Not going to work, Ash. I take down a $1,300 pot, and it looks like we are on the comeback trail. Comeback season for Wolfgang Inc. We're still at the featured table, and I look down at King Jack offsuit. I'm in the $10 straddle and decide to call a $50 raise. We're going four ways to the flop, which gives me top pair, a gut shot, and also a backdoor king high flush draw. Action checks through, bringing in the 8 of hearts on the turn. We now turn ourselves an open-ended straight draw, still have top pair, and of course we have the king high flush draw as well. I decided to fire out for $100 here, just trying to take down the pot, protect my hand against maybe an ace high flush draw, something like that. We're obviously going to get called by Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, who flopped themselves a nice set. They river the boat, I make trips, and somehow we lose the minimum versus a donk bet here, a $50 bet. I'm only losing $500 in this hand, which I will gladly take. Trip kings versus a boat, tens full of kings, $500 going over to seat 9.
I now pick up 10-9 suited here in the +2 position. I have about $1,100 in my stack and raise this one up to 20 over a $6 straddle. 10-9 suited being my favorite hand definitely comes into play later on in the vlog. But for now, we raise this one up, get 2 callers, and then the button decides to re-raise to 125. My hand has great playability post-flop, so I go ahead and stick in the call, and so does the player on my left as well. And we're off to a flop, which comes ace, king, 9. No hearts out there, unfortunately, and we just have a pair of 9s, which is third pair at the moment. I decide to check, and this one checks through. The turn comes in the 5 of diamonds, and I check again. And now this is actually going to check all the way through again, which is pretty interesting. When the preflop aggressor doesn't bet this board twice after both of his other opponents have shown a lot of weakness by checking 2 streets, I think it narrows his range down to a few specific hands. I think any sort of hand that would have picked up equity on the turn here, like some sort of diamond draw or maybe a gut shot straight draw, would probably bet on this turn here to try and take it down. I also think some sort of king X holding would probably also bet at this point. So when he checks twice and doesn't range bet this board, which should be very good for him in theory, I'm putting him on a hand that has showdown value and just wants to see a cheap run out. That's probably going to be a hand like queens, jacks, or 10s at the moment. So when the river comes to 4 of diamonds, I really don't think it changes much. I think one of the other 2 opponents would have bet a diamond draw, and now I have a decision to make. I could check here and take my third pair as showdown value, but as I just mentioned, I actually don't think my 9 is good here. I think a king would get sticky here, but like I said, I don't think a king would take this line. I think it would have bet the turn after both of us checked to him twice. So I'm going to go for it here. I put out about a third pot size bet for $140. Not too big of a bet. It kind of just looks like value. I would absolutely play a king X holding this way. So it's going to put a lot of the hands I just mentioned in a tough spot. And that's exactly what happens because both players fold. Did we have the best hand? It's definitely possible. I'm not too sure, but I was definitely betting as a bluff here, not for value. And as I'm scooping in this nice $500 pot, Slick Rick on my left has a funny comment.
You're gonna get like Jack's fold or something. I tell him that all the time.
I put the $40 straddle on this time in hand number 76 of the live stream. The Pretty Boys, aka Harvey, in this one. He raises up to $100. Very GTO sizing there of 2.5x. I look down at Jack 9 offsuit from the $40 straddle, shake Harvey's hand, tell him we're going to battle. I put in the call. Jack 9 offsuit did not work well for me earlier on versus that flip with pocket 4s, but maybe on a 6-6-5 board we can represent a 5 or a 6 and take this one down. I check it over to Harvey. He bets for 75 and I decide to float him with some evil intentions on the turn. It comes the 3 of clubs, a little more the same for me with a check. Harvey sizes up now to 225. I still think he could be doing this with ace king sometimes, king queen, and then he's gonna have some pocket pairs like 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. Still, if I have a 6 in this spot, if I have a deuce 4, 4, 7 somehow from the $40 straddle, need to be raising, so I decide to click it back over to him for a very small sizing, just north of $500. This sizing in my mind was to tell Harvey I am going to jam the river. I'm trying to figure out the best way to pot commit Harvey. I thought a min click would look super strong, even though I just have Jack 9 offsuit. Definitely not a recommendable play trying to bluff a very strong player off of what seems to be a very strong hand at this point. But that being said, we're on a live stream, we're stuck in the game, and I think I can get pocket 7s, 8s, and 9s to fold. So I make the move. Harvey doesn't think about it for too long before calling, which I would expect him to do with a lot of those hands. However, on the river, when it comes to king of diamonds, I gotta tell the story that I have a 6, maybe pocket 5s, maybe deuce 4 or 4-7. So I rip it in for $965. And let's expose Harvey's hand. He has pocket 10s. It might be just 1 pip too high for him to fold, but he's in the tank, and that's definitely something I want to see. He has pocket 10s here, a very strong hand. I wish he had pocket 7s or pocket 8s. In theory, it's the exact same type of hand. He still just has a bluff catcher at this point, but I think maybe some of the times he would fold 7s and 8s, whereas 10s just can't be a fold. He checks his cards one more time before tossing in a 1K chip. That's not good news for your boy over here. This 3K pot is going over to Harvey and the pretty boys, and Wolfgang Inc. taking another blow to our stack. I was trying to win back some chips for the team with a Jack 9 offsuit bluff, but Harvey is just a little bit too good for that one. Hand number 85 is a good one. We see a raise to $100. Gonna get a few calls. I look down at $461 in my stack. I decided to rip it all in with none less than ace king offsuit. What a premium here. I don't have much in my stack. It's not gonna look too credible, but I get it in, and we are going to go 3 ways to the flop. This could be a good spot to triple up. We see we're up against ace 10 suited and ace 7 suited. What a dream spot for us. Let's run it out. Queen 7-4, all diamonds is not what we needed. Team Love Sucks comes out in the lead. Deuce of clubs isn't great, but the king of diamonds on the river. We are a little bit scared. Obviously making top pair is great, but there's 4 diamonds, but none of them have it. A $1,500 pot is shipped over our way. I bust out those rare dance moves for the table to see.
Ace king is somehow good.
Wolfgang
No diamonds.
doing the smack the booty rodeo dance with the added casting the fish hook. He's brought all the dances out tonight for Valentine's.
All right, we're back in the right direction. 2 more hands to go, one from myself, one from Lucas. I look down at ace queen offsuit from the hijack. We see a raise and a call ahead of us. I decide to come in for a 3-bet, and Benham is the only caller. The flop comes ace 6-3. Pretty great spot for us, and Bennett check calls a $100 bet from yours truly. The turn comes a 5 of diamonds. I think he's gonna have ace 5, ace 3 a lot, so I decide to check it behind, trying to go for some pot control and some deception. The river comes to 8 of spades. Bennett checks once again. I go for a chunky bet here of $420. I'll never miss a moment to put that bet out there. If I'm in between like 400 and 450, it's always going to be 420. Benham snap calls me, and we turn over the goods. He quickly mucks, and a $1,400 pot coming over my way. Lucas, take it from here.
Thank you, Wolf. We now find ourselves in the live stream for the hand of the night. I had been pretty card dead up to this point on the live stream, which kind of sucked, but that's all going to change here when I pick up my favorite hand, 10-9 suited, this time of the diamond variety. The graphics somehow missed it, but Carlos opened up from early position to $50 over a $10 straddle, and then grumpy old men in the hijack decide to flat that $50. I have a pretty great squeeze hand here in the Nick game. Now normally I'm not going to be squeezing this hand very much when the earliest position at the table opens up the action, but it is the Nick game, so everyone's playing a bit looser. I go ahead and bump this one up to $205. Sizing up to a little over 4x here because I'm out of position and there's a flat caller. You could even probably make a case for 4.5 or 5x here for an even bigger bet. And I'm actually feeling pretty great once Carlos decides to fold his hand from the +1 position pretty quickly. At this point, I think I'm going to take down the hand a ton of the time. But then something weird happens when grumpy old man decides to back 4-bet me to $550. This actually puts me in the blender for quite some time as I'm trying to decipher what this could possibly be. What hands were only good enough to call the original $50 raise, but then re-raise me here once I've decided to 3-bet? Would he ever be doing this with a strong pair like aces, kings, queens, jacks? As I'm thinking this one over in my head and I'd seen this opponent play throughout the night, I decided that this was probably not the case. If for some odd reason we are against an overpair in this situation, I'm not really getting a good price to call. but I had kind of decided in my head that I just don't think any strong pairs are going to play this way. So what I end up deciding is that I want to see a flop here. I want to realize my equity as I think our cards are going to be pretty live. I don't necessarily think we're in the lead right now with 10 high, but if I hit a pair or see 2 diamonds, I think we can go ahead and go with this hand. So that's what I decided to do. I put in the $550. We both have about another 1,000 behind after this. And all things considered, we actually see a pretty decent flop with Jack 9-4 rainbow. We have middle pair, a backdoor straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. When you take the overpairs out of his range, this is actually a pretty great flop for me. I think we're gonna have the best hand a lot of the time here, but I'm not gonna be betting into my opponent here. I decided to check it over him to see what he wants to do. And he does decide to continue his story that he has a very strong hand. He goes for about a pot-sized jam here of $1,000. This story just really does not make a lot of sense to me. It just really feels like he wants me to fold for the Nick game. This is a really dry board, and if he does have an overpair, which is essentially what he's representing, it's not going to be very scary for him, and I don't think he'd want to scare me off this hand with a full pot-sized jam on the flop. So I think about it for a few seconds and decide that my hand is probably best here, and I go ahead and put in the call.
And he has squadoosh.
Now Wolfgang has landed middle pair, might play with it.
He says, I got a pair.
Let's go.
Still, I'm not feeling too great at the moment as I'm playing about a 1,000 big blind pot with just second pair, which is pretty crazy, but not unheard of here in the Texas streets. We go to a round here, which really doesn't change anything. I still finish the hand with second pair. I'm pretty slow to turn over my hand as I'm not still 100% sure if it's good or not, but in a moment of great relief, my opponent sheepishly shakes his head, indicating to me that he does not have anything. I go ahead and flip over my second pair, and we are going to take down this $3,200 pot with just second pair. My opponent was pretty shocked to see what I turned over, and honestly, I don't really blame him. I got pretty sticky here and honestly was just kind of tired of being bullied and 4-bet by the table. Was this a profitable play in the long run? I'm not really sure. I kind of just went with my read here of his line being strange and not making much sense. And combining that with the fact that the Nick game was on and we were both in it, I decided to just go with my hand here, and luckily this time it works out and we scoop in a big one.
That's going to conclude this action-packed Valentine's Day live stream on TCH Live. We somehow cut most of our losses with a nice run at the end. We were down as much as 6K at one point, but managed to escape with just a 2K loss. Still not great for a 1-3 game, but hey, at least it's not as bad as it could have been. Thanks for watching, you guys, and please hit the subscribe button if you liked the video. If you want to see more videos like this, click one of the ones you see on your screen right now. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!